Madam Clerk?
This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6, et sec, notice of which was sent to the record in the Star Ledger and was posted on the municipal bulletin board.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Battaglia?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino?
Aye.
Councilmember Sims?
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman?
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus?
Aye. Would everybody please rise for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, approval of the minutes, please, from full and regular meetings, April 21st, 2014. Have a motion?
Just a note, the deputy mayor was not at that meeting,
Correct.
so she can't.
Have a motion, please, to accept the minutes? Second. Roll call?
Councilmember Battaglia? Councilmember Sims?
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman?
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus?
Aye. Okay, before we start the regular meeting, I have a proclamation. Here, I see there's some guys from the Coast Guard here. This is great. You guys like to come up? Sure. Test, this is working. Okay, I have a proclamation here from the Office of the Mayor of the City of Hackensack. Whereas, whereas since its inception by an act of Congress 75 years ago on June 23, 1939, the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary has performed exemplary service to the Coast Guard and the boating public, and whereas Division 10 of the 1st Southern Region, United States Coast Guard Auxiliary, was chartered on January 1, 1954, and has been active in northern New Jersey since that time. And whereas this uniformed civilian component of the United States Coast Guard presently consists of nearly 33,000 dedicated men and women from all walks of life, including doctors, lawyers, students, and veterans, business owners, and housewives, all of who have volunteered innumerable hours raising awareness of the importance of practicing and promoting boating safety by conducting vessel inspection checks, public education courses, vigilant patrols of both air and sea, and by augmentation of the Coast Guard in all but its military and law enforcement missions. And whereas, on an average day, the members of the Coast Guard Auxiliary assist in at least 10 search and rescue SAR operations, aid 28 boaters in distress, save more than $340,000 worth of property, and participate in 100 operational support missions. And whereas, whether it is through educating the public about the importance of wearing a life preserver, rescuing a mariner at sea, or assisting the active duty Coast Guard, the members of the Coast Guard Auxiliary in general and Division 10 in particular represent what is absolutely the best about our country. Now therefore, I, John P. LaBrus Jr., Mayor of the City of Hackensack, with other members of the City Council, do hereby proclaim June 23rd as United States Coast Guard Auxiliary Day in the City of Hackensack. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Take a picture with the council. Sure. You guys want to come down? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm not going to shake hands with you. Okay. No one's ready to pay Jarvis.
Okay, this time we're going to move on to our budget amendment presentation, which will be presented by Mr. Jim Megan, our CFO. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
First, just a minute about the process, okay? Budget was introduced, I believe it was March 11th, which was prior to the statutory deadline, which is March 15th. We held our public hearing roughly about a month later. And at the public hearing, we had said that the budget was going to have to be amended, and that when the amendment was ready, we would present it, and there would be a public hearing on it. This is the presentation of not just the budget amendment, but of the amended budget, and that's the entire budget with the amendment included. We'll do the presentation. Later on at the regular council meeting, you'll vote on that amendment. Assuming the amendment passes, it then gets adjourned because we need to have a public hearing on the budget and the amendment. That's scheduled for Tuesday's meeting at the 24th. Following the public hearing, you'll have a discussion, and that's when you would vote on the adoption. Okay. So again, for tonight, we're going to be presenting the amended budget. Okay. Similar to the introduction. Let me get situated here. Okay, starting with the budget goal, same goal as we talked about at introduction. That's to craft a budget that's accurate, sets the framework for long-term tax stability, providing the funding and planning necessary for redevelopment, community improvements, as well as known future events. When we talk about known future events, we're talking about things such as tax appeals. We're talking about the accumulated absence liability we talked about at intro. Things like preparing for snowstorms. Those things that we know are going to happen, okay? And we need to be prepared for that, okay? The part of the reason that we're a little bit late in terms of the budget amendment, okay, well, two reasons. One is, and we mentioned this at the public hearing, is that when the budget was introduced, we hadn't yet filed the annual financial statement, okay? When that was filed, which was, I believe, the end of March, we discovered that we didn't have as much surplus as we had hoped to, okay? During the budget intro, I had said that surplus is a revenue at risk in that we're not 100% sure it's going to be there every year. What we found out when we filed the annual financial statement is that the surplus that we're actually holding is a little more than $2 million. Of the $2 million in surplus that we're holding, only $1.7 million is in cash surplus. And in the introduced budget, we were anticipating $3 million. So what we needed to do was knock that number down, which then necessitated finding replacement revenue. And the other issue that came up was the impact of the tax appeals that have been in the news. And in terms of not just the budget, but also all of the financial decisions that you're going to be making really are going to be made against the backdrop of that tax appeal issue. So I'm going to be spending a little bit of time talking about tax appeals because we've talked about it before, but we haven't really talked about it from a budget standpoint, okay? And it's important because it's going to be driving a lot of the things that are happening, okay? In order for us to have a better understanding, we really need to get into the tax appeal issue. All right. Because what had happened was, in terms of the tax appeals, it created what I call this paradigm shift. A paradigm is a way of viewing the world. Paradigm shift is when there's an event that changes the way you view the world, and that's exactly what happened with this tax appeals. Call it, if you want, the $30 million gorilla that's in the room, because that number has been thrown around. And what it does is it did kind of make us go back and take another look at the entire budget. Okay, to understand the tax appeal issue, all right, there's been all kinds of numbers thrown around. All right, and when I read and when I hear about it, I know what all those numbers mean. When I hear 8.3 million, I know what that is. I hear 10.2 million, I know what that is. I hear 20 million, I know what that is, but that's me. Got to be driving you guys crazy, because all you hear is numbers. So what I wanted to do was to show you, like, in terms of the scope of the tax appeal issue, how much money are we actually talking about? How much have we spent? How much do we have to spend? Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the impact, the tax appeal issue, because it's had a direct impact on the quality of life in Hackensack. And the quality of life is one of those ambiguous terms that people throw around, and I want to show you exactly how that has impacted. And then finally, we've talked about the plan to address the tax appeal issue, but we really haven't talked about the effect of the plan. What is that fix going to cost the average taxpayer? Okay. So now, in terms of the scope of the problem, okay, this is what the city of Hackensack has paid out in tax appeals from 2010 through 2013. This is checks that were cut, refunds that have already been made. 3.8 million in 2010, 3.3 million in 2011, 1.6 million in 2012, and 3.3 million last year in 2013. The tax appeals that were paid last year in 2013 paid in the early part of the year, and when they were paid, there really wasn't a spending authorization to charge them against. Absent a spending authorization, they then get charged off to our surplus, which is part of the reason why we don't have the surplus that we were kind of hoping that we would. But in the period 2010 to 2013, Hackensack's paid out $12.2 million in tax appeals. That's a red flag right there. And if that was the end of the story, that would be one thing, but it's not, because unfortunately, now in 2014, we have more tax appeals to be paid, okay? We've got the University Plaza tax appeal of $1,071,000. That's due in just a couple of weeks. Okay, at the last council meeting, we talked about resolution number 199-14, which is, lack of a better term, what could be called the settled tax appeal cases. Okay, these are tax appeals that were settled at some point. The assessments were lowered, okay, but the appeals themselves were never executed. Okay, you took the first step in the execution at the last meeting by passing resolution 199-14. In addition, you also did resolution number 200-14, which are the current tax settlements. These are settlements that our current tax appeal attorney negotiated. That's $843,000. So what that means is that in 2014, by the end of the year, we're going to have to pay out $10.2 million. Okay, that's the tax appeal issue as it hits 2014. Again, if that was the end of the story, that would be one thing. Okay, it's not. Okay, there are still a significant number of tax appeals that are pending. Now, the tax appeals that are pending, estimates run anywhere from $7 million to $20 million. You could pick any number in that range. They haven't been negotiated yet, so we really don't know until they're negotiated how much money we're talking about. But we need to understand that they're there, okay? They have to be acknowledged. In addition, we don't ever want to forget that we still have an accumulated absence liability over $10 million. What that is, that's sick time that's owed to police officers, firefighters, DPW employees, and City Hall employees. That's not subject to negotiation. Those are the results of contracts. That's money that absolutely has to be paid. Right? What we need to do is we need to actually come up with a plan to address that. Okay, and that's one of the things we'll be working on as soon as the budget is done. Okay. Now, the tax appeals themselves, you know, if you understand what happens with a tax appeal, okay, you had a revaluation in 2007, okay? Property owner's not happy with his reval, so he files a tax appeal. If the property owner is successful, the assessment is lowered, taxes are recalculated, and we owe a refund. Now, when the taxes are lowered, when the assessments are lowered, that collectively lowers the total net valuation of the city. This is the number that the tax assessor, R. Carlson, mentioned a couple of meetings ago, where he talked about a $1 billion decline in our assessments. And you see, this is Hackensack's net valuation between 2009 and 2012. 2009, $6 billion, $96 million. And in 2012, we're down to $4 billion, $994 million. That's a significant decline. That's an 18% drop in 3 years, or a decline of $1.1 million. That's significant because what that means is, as your assessments go down, even assume that your tax levy stays the same. It doesn't, but just assume for a second that it does. That means that your tax levy stays the same, but your tax rate is going up. Tax bills are going up, okay? That's a serious problem. Now, when I saw that, I looked at it and I said, that needs to be investigated. First thing I thought was, well, that's just the repercussions of the drop in the housing market, probably happening to everybody. So what I did was I took a look at the other communities in central Bergen just to see what was going on with them. And you see this graph. This is all the municipalities in the central Bergen region. The U.S. Census breaks us up into regions, okay? And this information was taken right off of, out of the municipal audits, right off of the town's websites. And you'll see Hackensack at the top. It's actually ranked by population. There's Hackensack's $1.1 billion drop in valuation, or 18%. But you'll notice that River Edge has an 11.6% drop. Other than that, nobody else has dropped any more than 1%, in most cases less than 1%. Oradell's actually increased. Okay? That means that there's something unique to Hackensack, something to Hackensack alone. In fact, during that period, Hackensack is the most populous, but it doesn't have the highest net valuation. Paramus has the highest net valuation. At the start of this period, in 2009, Hackensack had the second largest net valuation. Not anymore. Teaneck now has the second highest. Hackensack is now third. Okay? But you'll see that something's causing this decline in Hackensack that isn't going on in the other communities. All right? That's how important the tax appeal issue is, that we have to address it. That's what I refer to as the quality of life, because what the quality of life means, in terms of finances, is the ability for the municipal government to increase the services that you give and stabilize taxes at the same time, okay? Because you can increase services and improve everybody's quality of life, but taxes go up and nobody can afford to live here. Or you could stabilize taxes by cutting your services, lay off policemen, ignore your infrastructure, all right? Taxes will be great, but nobody will want to live here. So the quality of life means being able to increase your services, stabilize your taxes at the same time. And that's what hasn't happened in Hackensack since this period, during 2009. That's really the crux of the problem. That's what we need to go after. Okay. So the key to improving the quality of life in Hackensack, which means the key to being able to increase your services and stabilize your taxes, is to reverse that trend of declining valuations. Okay, that's the prize that we need to keep our eye on. Okay, now the long-term solution to that is redevelopment. It's absolutely redevelopment. Okay, you can't budget your way out of this problem. You can't cut your budget enough to solve this. Okay, we're talking about $1 billion decline in valuation. Okay. Really need redevelopment. Redevelopment comes in, takes a vacant piece of property that's right now being assessed as land only, improves that property. Okay, now it's assessed at land plus the improvements. That happens enough, the valuations rise, and any increase in the tax levy, because you're doing more services, is then spread out over more ratables. Okay? That's what needs to happen. That's why the long-term solution is redevelopment. Short-term objective is to do everything that we can, to make Hackensack attractive to developers. In terms of finances, okay, the way we do that is tax stability. Okay, that's one of the things that developers look for, and we talked about this at the intro. They absolutely look for stability. I showed a slide in the intro that showed the tax increases, where we saw 0 in 2009, followed by an 8% in 2010, followed by an 11%, followed by a 2. All right, that needs to stabilize. Okay, that's what we're going after. In terms of, we talked about how to fix the problem. We said what we need to do, absolutely, is to do a revaluation. That's the first thing. Okay, you'll see at the council meeting later on, you'll be passing a resolution for us to go out for RFPs for a revaluation. That's the first step. After that, then we're going to do annual reassessments, okay, to keep our equalization ratio, is what it's called, as close to true market value as possible. Okay, what that should do is that should slow down the tax appeals. Okay, hopefully enough, some redevelopment kicks in and we can start to reverse this whole decline. Problem is still that 10.2 million. That's got to get paid in 2014. Okay, what do we do with that? Now, what's going to happen with that is you can't do a bond ordinance for tax refunds without the approval of the local finance board. Now, we met with the officials of the local finance board. We told them that what we were planning to do. What we'll do is we'll file an application to do a bond ordinance for this 10.2 million. In our application, we're going to ask to be able to finance this over as many years as they'll allow. Okay? It's entirely possible, although not likely. They may turn down the application flat. They turn down the application flat, we have to take that 10.2 million and put that into the 2015 budget. Again, that's a worst case scenario. If that were to happen, you see that the tax increase to the average taxpayer for tax appeals alone goes up to $498. Again, that's pretty unlikely. Okay, they are probably going to give us, a financing term. If they give us 3 years, hey, that translates into 6.92 tax points. The average taxpayer is going to see an increase of $166. At 5 years, average taxpayer is going to see an increase of $99. Best case scenario is that they let us spread it out over 7 years. They let us spread it out over 7 years, and we're looking at a $71 increase for tax appeals only to the average taxpayer. Now, unfortunately, a $71 tax increase is our best case scenario, okay? And it's not a very good case at all, okay? And that's why, if our best case scenario is a $71 tax increase, we needed to actually go back to the budget and go line by line, looking at not just the impact in 2014, what's the impact going to be 2015, 2016, and beyond. And this is where we talk about the paradigm shift. We needed to go back. We needed to look at capital. All right, we're not going to be able to bond as much as we hoped we could because we're going to be bonding hopefully for 10.2 million. Okay, we needed to look at the salary and wage budgets and the operating expense budgets because we may not be able to increase some of the programs that we wanted to. All right, it's already had an impact on our contract negotiations. We know it's going to have an impact on our debt service because it's going to be at least an additional $10.2 million of debt this year, and who knows what the increase in debt is going to be next year or even the year after. All right, we needed to look at, we will need to look at the caps, the tax levy cap, the budget appropriation cap, which we've already done. It's already impacted the amount that the city donates to the Johnson Public Library in addition to what they're already entitled to. And it's going to have impacts to in terms of our health benefit budget. If we ever wanted to consider getting out of self-insurance, we're going to have problems with that. Okay, that brings us to, after that long-winded explanation on tax appeals, we circle back to the budget that's before you. Okay, now the budget is a total increase. Wait 1 second, I'm sorry. All right, okay. The total increase in the budget is only 2.18%, or a little more than $2 million. Okay? Well, I'll show you exactly what makes up that $2 million. Salaries and wages are only going up 0.27% from 2013. What we did, we went line by line into all the salary accounts to try and trim them as much as we could without having to rely on layoffs, furloughs, or anything like that. We increased the capital improvement fund. That's the money that, the city's money that we're going to use for capital expenditures as opposed to bonding. We're taking that up to $614,000. Okay, we'll get into what's included in that in a second. We did reduce the reliance on surpluses revenue, which was a stated goal at the intro, kind of forced upon us. You know, we were kind of hoping to step down that reliance, but we couldn't. We had to actually had to decimate it from 3 million down to 1 million. Okay, we had to include in this budget a fix to the 2013 health benefit issue. That's going to need some explaining. All right, the 2013 health benefits budget had a $1.7 million shortfall. So before we could even look at the 2014 health benefit budget, okay, we needed to bring it up to take care of last year's $1.7 million shortfall. I'll explain that in more detail because that's a somewhat complicated issue. Okay, in this budget, we split the Cultural Arts Center out from the recreation budget. We did that to more accurately track the expenditures for those two, and that was in keeping in line with our goal to make the budget more accurate. All right. At the introduction of the budget, you know, we talked about the fact that the fleet of police vehicles is old. All right. Earlier this year, you did a lease agreement, you know, for 6 new Dodge Chargers, and we included money in the budget for an additional 6 vehicles as well. The plan is to leave that in as a budget appropriation, okay, until that fleet gets completely modernized. All right. As I said before, and we'll show in more detail, we had to reduce the amount of the donation to the Johnson Public Library. Again, that's in addition to the statutory amount that you're required to turn over. All right. The budget has included a number of documented sustained revenues, also a goal of the budget introduction. All right. That ties into reducing the reliance on surpluses revenue. And finally, we put a fix in the budget to an impending deficit in the Public Defender Trust Fund. The Public Defender Trust Fund, which is used to supplement the Public Defender budget, was running parallel. Well, it's probably in a deficit by now. It was very close. What happened was at some point, I believe 2011, yeah, in 2011, the budget included about $97,000 for the services of the public defender. That was cut to $53,000 in 2012. It was cut, and the decision was made to rely more on the trust fund. Problem is that we were using more out of the trust fund that was coming in. It was only a matter of time before the trust fund was depleted. Like I said, it's probably depleted about now. So what we had to do was we had to fix that. So we increased the budget appropriation to $120,000. That'll fix the deficit in the trust, and then next year we'll be able to take that down to a lower level, still higher than the previous $50,000. Okay, now as I said, the total increase in the budget is a little more than $2 million, $2,013,000. And what makes up that $2 million is, again, the increase in salary and wages, only 0.27%. Salary and wages only increased $108,000. Salaries and wages in this budget roughly about $40 million. And of the $40 million, $108,000 is the increase over last year. The operating expenses, which is what the departments use, is up about $92,000, or 0.42%. In essence, those two budget lines are, in all intents and purposes, flat. Okay, it's about as flat as you can get in a $94 million budget. Now you see in the health benefits, the true increase in our claims from one year to the next is about $477,000, which equates to roughly about a 3.97% increase. It's the fix to the 2013 health benefit budget that's really driving the increase. Okay, again, we'll explain that in more detail, but that's 1.7 million that we had to put into this budget to cover the shortfall in the 2013 budget. Again, I'll explain that in more detail in a little bit. We increased the capital improvement fund by 414,000, and everything else that's included in the budget, grants, debt service, statutory expenses, which are pension, Social Security, things like that. All those other aspects are down about 800,000. Okay, so in total, you see total budget's up about 2 million or 2.18%. We talked about the capital improvement fund and how we're increasing that by 414,000. Budgeted 200,000 in 2013. This year is 614,000. Now the 614,000 is a little deceiving because 214,000 of that is for an upgrade to the 911 system. All right, and that's offset by a line of revenue that's coming in. There was a reserve set up. Actually, the reserve was actually set up back in the early 90s to upgrade the 911 system. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take $214,000 out of the general capital fund, bring it over as revenue, and then include it in the appropriation side. All right, take it in as a one-time revenue, put it on the appropriation side to upgrade that system. Okay, you remember when we talked about revenue at risk, we said one-time revenues are something that we should absolutely never do. The only time that you should do them is when they're offset by a one-time appropriation. This way, next year, the revenue goes away, and so does the appropriation. Okay. Now, Anthony had done a presentation on capital a few meetings ago, where we talked about the 911 system upgrade. We talked about computer purchases, security cameras, as well as an electronic timekeep system. Those items were all put into this budget. At the time, he also talked about an upgrade to the police telephones, an upgrade to the police radio console, as well as a metal detector for the court system. Those capital items are in a bond ordinance that you'll be introducing later tonight. Okay, that was the capital, the 2014 capital plan that we had put together. And you'll see that the 2014 budget, you'll see when you get the budget document next week, it includes a capital budget for the first time since 2007. I had to go back into the past budgets to see what had been done before, and it haven't had a capital budget since 2007. The next step, one of the things we'll be working on after this, is the 6-year capital plan. All right, so next year you'll see not only a capital budget, but you'll also see a 6-year capital plan as well. Okay, we talked about revenue at risk at the budget introduction and how it was something that we needed to step down as much as possible. It was one of the big drivers in tax instability. You see in 2013, we anticipated a surplus of $3,350,000. This year, we're anticipating $1 million. Okay? In total revenue at risk in 2014 is $1.6 million. The parking utility surplus, we know that's a revenue at risk, and what we're going to do with that is we're going to step that down beginning next year. We're going to reduce that by 1/5 every year for 5 years, beginning with next year's budget. Other than that, we eliminated all the revenue at risk in the budget. All right, if a revenue can't be sustained year after year, it's not going into the budget. And now, this is the fix to the 2013 health benefit issue. Okay, and again, this needs an explanation. Okay, up there you see the two health benefit budgets side by side. Okay, 2013 and 2014. First thing you'll know is that the 2014 budget is more detailed. Okay, what we did was we included lines, not just claims, but we included a budget line for the fixed costs. Fixed costs mainly are your stop loss premium. We're self-insured, but we're self-insured only up to $100,000. We get a medical claim that's higher than $100,000, and we have our stop loss insurance that covers that. The premium for that is $1.5 million, $1,550,000. actually down from last year. Last year was $1,770,000. In addition, we're going to budget the reimbursements for the first time. These are the employee contributions to the health benefits, as well as what the library repays us, as well as the portion of health benefits we're going to charge off to the parking utility for the employees that are employed by the utility. Okay? You see that other budget line? What that is that's the dental program and the Medicare reimbursement. So in total, the 2014 budget for health benefits is $14,233,000. Last year's health benefit budget was $12,024,000. All right. So it appears that that's a $2.2 million increase from one year to the other. Okay. But the problem with that is that it's not a true 2.2. It is a $2.2 million increase, but 1.7 million, 1,731,000 of that is a shortfall that occurred in last year's budget. To understand that, you really need to go back and take a look at last year's budget. Okay? This is the 2013 health benefits budget. All right, basically you see three columns. First column is the projection. All right, we're self-insured. So in terms of budgeting for your claims, what we do is we get a projection from our third-party administrator. If we were in a state health benefits plan, for example, we would have premiums. We would know exactly how much we have to pay. We're not. We're self-insured, so we have to take the projection given to us by our third-party administrator. The projection for claims in 2013 was $12,122,000. Okay, the budget was $11,584,000. But as I said before, reimbursements weren't budgeted. All right, so if you take the reimbursements into account, you can kind of understand why the full $12.1 million wasn't budgeted. All right, you put the claims and the reimbursements together, and you'll see that the actual claims not too far, well, a little bit far off the mark, you know, but the budgeted amount was fairly close to the projection. Problem comes in with the fixed costs. Okay, the stop-loss premium was projected at $1,787,000. Okay, but that 1.7 million was never included in the 2013 budget. So you see, in total, the total projection for 2013 is $14,350,000, but the budget itself was only $12,024,000. The actual claim costs were $13,755,000. You take the difference between the actual claim costs and what was budgeted, and you'll see that there's a shortfall in the 2013 budget of $1,731,000. Now that's claims that were paid. You know, so the question is, where did that 1.7 million come from in 2013? You know, and Kathy knows this. This comes from the transfers. You know, we said there were a significant number of budget transfers in the 2013 budget. Okay, money moving back and forth all over the place. One of the goals of our budget was to make the budget more accurate, to limit the number of transfers. That's how 2013 was covered, through transfers. 2014, that number has to be covered by simply increasing the budget. Okay. So again, as we said before, if you take the $1.7 million 2013 budget shortfall out of the equation, then health benefits actually rose $497,000, or 3.97%, which is not a, it's an increase that's not too far off the mark. It's actually healthier than the state health benefits plan. Premiums in the state health benefits plan in 2014 increased 6.6%. Our claims increased 3.97%. So all in all, it wasn't a bad year for health claims, believe it or not, but it was a terrible year in terms of the actual claims versus the budget. Okay. We spoke about the library donation. Okay, all municipalities in the state of New Jersey are required to turn over to their public libraries what's referred to as the third of a mil, which, for what I believe, is 1/3 of 1/100th of 1% of the equalized ratio, the equalized valuation I'm not exactly sure about the right number of zeros. Hackensack has always donated more than the 1/3 of a mil. Okay, you'll see going back 2008 was $105,000 over the third of a mil. As property values declined, okay, the amount of that donation then increases year after year to the point where in 2013 we're now $1,090,000 over the statutory requirement of the third of a mil. Okay, we had a meeting with the library, and what we decided to do was to take the excess of the difference between last year's budget and what this year's third of a mil is, and we reduced it by 1/5. Okay, next year what we'll do is we'll take another look at it. All right, decide if we want to take it down another 1/5. We'll have to look at this at a year-by-year basis. Okay. We met with the library, we reviewed their finances. Okay. They do have an unrestricted reserve in the New Jersey cash management system of $452,000, which they could fall back on if they had to. Okay, it's unrestricted. In addition, they have a restricted capital improvement fund of about $425,000, significantly more than the city's capital improvement fund. Okay. This is the revenue replacement, taking the place of the surplus. You know, as we said, surplus is a revenue at risk. It was reduced from last year by $2,350,000, and instead what we wanted to put into the budget were annual sustainable revenues that we're going to see year after year. Okay, by putting them into the budget, a couple things happen. First, it gives us accountability. You know, it's a good way to track to make sure that we're getting exactly what we're entitled to. And it's also a lot better for tax stability to use sustainable revenue as opposed to revenue at risk, such as surplus. So you see the budget includes for the first time the Verizon franchise fee of $180,000, Cablevision franchise fee $372,000. There's the contract we have with the Hackensack Board of Ed for the school resource officer. That contract expires later this month, has to be renegotiated, but there's $59,000 included in there. Sewer use charges, you know, for the BCUA, for those businesses that have an excess of sewer charges, $430,000. There's a pilot agreement with the Hackensack Housing Authority for $100,000. And every year we take in recycling revenue. All right. Last year was roughly about $70,000, I believe. A conservative estimate for this year will be $64,000. Okay. These are the revenues that we're able to put into the budget. There's a number of other revenues that we know about, but we're not able to put them in the budget yet. In order to put it in the budget, the state considers them to be new revenues. They have to be documented properly. So what we're going to do, for example, there's an agreement with Hackensack University Medical Center for crossing guards. We can't include it as a revenue because it hasn't been documented. In 2014, as the funds come in, we'll document it. In 2015, we'll be able to put that into the budget. Okay, so in all, again, a slightly more than $2 million increase to the budget. What does that do to the tax levy? All right. Well, the increase in the budget combined with a decrease in the surplus revenue that we were counting on means that the tax levy goes up $3.3 million. Okay, that's roughly about a 4.37% increase to the levy. Okay, what that means to the average taxpayer. Okay, the average residential home in Hackensack is assessed at $240,329. So for the average taxpayer, they're going to see an increase on the municipal portion of their tax bill of $161.79. Okay, in all, as I said earlier, the budget is incredibly flat. And again, $2 million increase, $1.7 million of that is a shortfall in the 2013 budget, and $414,000 of that is an increase to the capital improvement fund, of which we're reimbursing ourselves $214,000. Okay, Again, we went line by line, to try and make the budget as accurate as possible. Okay, now, the budget represents the administration's financial plan for carrying out the goals and objectives of the governing body. Okay, that's the purpose of the budget. And we feel that we've done that. Okay, more than anything else, the budget incorporates a lot of change. That was the direction we got from the governing body. Okay, wanted to see things change, not so much change for change's sake, but change that's real. Okay? Budget's a lot more accurate than it was before. The reporting in it will be a lot more better. Where there are no gimmicks, no one-time revenues. Next year, when we do the budget process, it'll be a lot easier than it was this year, all right? Because we're already anticipating a number of problems for next year. Okay? The change that's in this budget is what we're calling the change is attainable, it's real, it's sustained, and it's where we stand, which is the line I lifted from Tony Jackson's poem, if you remember, from last July. I love that poem. Okay, that's where we stand, again, with the budget amendment. The plan, again, is that later on at the council meeting, you'll vote on the amendment. Okay? Assuming that amendment passes, we'll then advertise it. There'll be a public hearing at the Tuesday meeting, at which time you'll then vote for the adoption. Okay, if there are any questions from the governing body at all?
I have a question.
Sure.
Could you elaborate on the shortfall? Explain to the public and to us a little bit more what you mean by a shortfall.
In the health benefit budget?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Again, where we get the numbers from is we're self-insured, okay? So in order to budget for our claims, we're going to rely on two things. One is your past history, and the second is our third-party administrator for claims is going to project what they believe our claim costs are going to be for the year. That's where we start, okay? That's the budget for claims. We already know what the fixed costs are because that's a premium that we pay for our stop loss, okay? What happened last year was for whatever reason, okay? The budget's about 1.7 million less than.
So they did not fund $1.7 million
Right.
plus
Yeah,
for some reason.
right. So what happens
So-
is the claims have to get paid. We have to find money somewhere, and that begins a whole series of transfers from other departments. Again,
Right.
transfers were about 1.8 million.
And we don't know why it happened.
No, that kind of bothered me because I couldn't figure out why. And what I was afraid of was that there was a reason for it that I wasn't seeing. And I absolutely needed to know, what is that reason? Because I got to know, is it a reason that applies to this year as well as last year? At first I thought, the only thing I could come up with, and again, this is just speculation, it wasn't here, is that perhaps there was a levy cap problem last year, okay? If you exceed the 2% levy cap, the relief for that is a public referendum, okay? But the deadline for that is February. That deadline comes and goes. If you have a levy cap problem, then the only thing that you can do is cut a budget somewhere.
Short the budget.
Being self-insured, I thought maybe what it was is, okay, let's cut the health benefit budget, cross our fingers and hope for the best. That's what I thought it was, until I got into it. And I started looking, and I looked to see if there was a levy cap problem last year, and there wasn't. In 2012, budget came in significantly below the levy cap, and there's over $1 million banked from the 2012 budget that could have been used if there was a levy cap problem. So that's not what it was. Without that, I really can't speculate as to what the reason for under budgeting is.
Well, I think we have a perfect person now to respond to it. I believe our mayor was on the finance committee last year. So maybe he can tell us why they under budgeted.
Finance committee, I do not know what the stop loss.
It was under budgeted by almost $1.8 million.
That was not the time to discuss.
No, I'd like to know. You're the perfect person to respond to it. I didn't hear it.
I said I am not aware of why it is not. John, we can't hear you. I'm sorry. Councilman Greenman has said that I was on the Budget and Finance Committee last year. I was on the Budget Committee. There was no Budget and Finance Committee. It was just a Budget Committee. I am unaware of why the stop-loss payment was not included in the budget. That was my answer.
Did you sign off on the budget?
I voted on the budget.
You voted on the
I
budget.
voted on the budget.
Right.
Your
Did you
point.
vote on the budget? You
Just
didn't
said I
ask
voted
why
on
it
it.
was short?
Ms. Greenman, we're not on trial here. I just
I
gave you
just
my...
asked the question.
I gave you my answer. I'm unaware of why the stop-loss payment was not in there. Okay?
Okay.
I had 2 budget meetings. That's it.
So you didn't know about budgets?
That's enough. Please, move forward, please.
Jim, can I ask you a simple question? The last budget that I looked at, the difference, the delta was at $2.5 million. And when I'm looking at my notes, it looks to me like the column,
Wait, I'm sorry, Kat, can you say that again?
the column, the 213 adopted budget number is like about $500,000 more than the one that we reviewed at our meeting. So can you
Yeah,
just
what
tell
had
me what that
happened
was?
was because that first number was the 2013 introduced budget. Then it occurred to me, no, I need to match an adopted budget to an adopted budget. The adopted budget.
So the
was
adopted
higher,
budget had a $500,000 increase in it?
which means that the true delta then becomes 2 million instead of 2.5 million.
Do you remember what it was? I mean, was it one thing or just to have an idea?
No, it wasn't until I matched up this, assuming an adopted budget versus the 2013 adopted budget. One of my spreadsheets, a formula didn't work out. I had to figure it out, and that's because I wasn't using the adopted budgeted number.
I would just think maybe it would be important for folks to hear if you could just give us a couple of items. I mean, obviously, we look at this and we see we have $2.2 million increase just in insurance. Yet, on a whole, you were able to keep that budget to a $2 million increase. Can you give them just a couple, can you give to the public just a quick overview of a couple of items that you feel you were really able to see a nice reduction in that enabled you to do that?
Yeah, because like for instance, if I were looking at this budget as a member of the public and I saw that salaries are $40 million, but they only increased $108,000, that screams layoff. That you look at that and you say, wow, you must have had a serious layoff, and that's not the case. All right. Instead, what we did on the salary accounts, we used zero-based budgeting, which means we took the 2013 budget and didn't even consider it. We just rebuilt each of the salary accounts, based on the people that were in there, and whatever the budgeted numbers came out to be, they came out to be. And when we put that all together, all right, they end up being only $108,000 less than last year. That's where the biggest savings came in. There were also a lot of budgets, not in terms of big dollars, but a lot of budgets that had budgeted amounts but no expenditures, and no expenditures for a number of years.
So you cleaned all that up?
Yeah, those are just surplus generators. What all they do is you don't spend them. They lapse, they go to surplus. And again, and we said this, the past budgets relied way too much on surplus. So what's going to happen is when this budget lapses, it's not going to generate the surplus numbers that budgets did in the past. But along the same lines, it's not anticipating the surplus as a revenue either.
Thank you.
Before we move forward, I just, to defend myself, yes, I was on the Budget Committee. Yes, I voted on the budget last year, and I voted under protest because there were only 2 meetings, and I voted no on last year's budget.
You did vote no, I saw that.
Okay? Thank you.
If you didn't bring that up, I was going to bring it up because I saw that.
Move ahead. Are we done with the...
You voted yes before you voted no.
Let's,
You voted yes before you voted
I
no.
voted to introduce, I didn't vote to adopt. Introducing, it's for the public, all right? Let's move forward with
Can you ask
city
your
manager's
wife not
report,
to
please.
get involved from her seat?
Thank you, Mayor. First, on June 5th, the city of Hackensack, along with DMR Architects and the Upper Main Street Alliance, were awarded the New Jersey Future 2014 Smart Growth Award for the downtown rehabilitation plan. That was at an awards dinner. We had the Hackensack Golf outing on the 11th. That was a success. Polyflight Towing, the vacated property on Green Street. We've been paid the $24,000 that was paid to the city. We are also investigating a situation of possible contamination on that property. That's under investigation now. As a paving update, as of Friday, Lodi Street from Polyfly to Green Street was milled and paved, and the ADA ramps were installed. Lexington Street was paved, also with the ADA ramps. Standish was milled on Friday. Paving will be early this week, weather permitting. Liberty Street, with the upgrading of the inlet catch basins at the dead end, if completed, we will be paving this week. Marvin Avenue, Old River Road, Burdan Place still need to be paved. 210 Main Street, the planning board in June will see if it meets the criteria for an area of need of redevelopment. 94 State Street is under construction. Paving services from Inglemore, they're complete. DPW will continue with the road repairs. Recreation Day Camp registration until June 23rd at 8 p.m. The camp will run from June 30th to Friday, August 8th. Football and baseball camp registration is available on the website, hackensack.org. And you can contact our recreation department for further information. That's Pat Ruggiero at 201-646-8042. And also with the paving, our project manager evidently found some more money and will be paving Coles Avenue from Lewis Street to Summit Avenue and Beach Street from Summit Avenue to Tracy Place. That was added to the list. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to resolutions. Resolution 202-14, introduction of an ordinance.
This is the introduction of ordinance number 22-2014, the capital ordinance of the City of Hackensack and the County of Bergen, New Jersey, authorizing an ordinance for the purchase of telecommunication equipment for the police department and metal detection system for the municipal court building, and appropriating $212,000 and providing that such sum so appropriated shall be raised from the fund balance of the general fund of the City of Hackensack. I need a motion.
May I have a motion, please?
Offer.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye.
Be it resolved that the above ordinance, being ordinance 22-2014, is introduced, is now passed on first reading, and that said ordinance shall be considered for final passage at a meeting to be held on July 8th, 2014, at 7:00 p.m., or as soon thereafter as the matter can be reached at the regular meeting place of the City Council, and at such time and place all persons interested be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance, and that the city clerk be and she is hereby authorized and directed to publish said ordinance according to law, with a notice of its introduction and passage on first reading, and of the time and place when and where said ordinance will be further considered for final passage.
Mayor, if I could, just need a correction in that last line. Okay. Sum so appropriated shall be raised from the fund balance of the general capital fund. Okay, the City of Hackensack.
General capital.
Yeah, general capital, because when you say general fund, that means the current fund, and you can't use the current fund.
Thank you, Mr. Mangan. Is everybody in agreement with that and still votes aye? Noted, thank you. Moving on to Resolution 203-14.
The resolution authorizing tax refunds.
Okay, excuse me, may I have a motion, please?
Offer.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Resolution 20414.
It is a resolution authorizing the tax collector to cancel interest on Block 110, Lot 3, LA LLC.
Have a motion, please.
Offer. Second.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Resolution 20514.
Is a resolution authorizing a refund for park permit number 1452.
May I have a motion, please?
Offered. Second.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Resolution 206-14.
Is a resolution authorizing inclusion in the Bergen County Community Development Program.
May I have a motion, please?
Offer.
Second.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Resolution 207-14.
It's a resolution authorizing the issuance of requests for qualifications for professional services to the city of Hackensack.
Motion, please?
Offered. Second.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Excuse me. Resolution 20814.
Is a resolution authorizing the submission of an Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant.
May I have a motion, please?
Offered.
Second.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Resolution 209-14.
Is a resolution for the cancellation of emergency temporary appropriations.
May I have a motion, please?
Offer.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Resolution number 210-14.
An emergency temporary appropriation prior to the adoption of the budget for NJSA 40A:4-20.
Have a motion, please?
Offered.
Second.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Abstain.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Resolution number 211-14.
Is a resolution to award the contract for lawn care services to Pat Scanlon Landscaping Incorporated.
May I have a motion, please?
Offered.
Second.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Resolution number 212-14.
Is a resolution authorizing raffle licenses for Holy Trinity Roman Catholic Church.
May I have a motion, please?
Offer.
Second.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Was that last one?
Go to 213.
Resolution 213-14, please.
Is the budget amendment.
Yes. May I have a motion, please?
Offer.
Roll call.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Abstain.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Resolution 214-14.
The resolution for the authorization of the issuance of requests for proposals for revaluation of all real property and subsequent annual reassessments.
May I have a motion, please?
Offered.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Resolution 215-14.
It's an authorization to establish a reserve for preliminary expenses for the Main Street, State Street, two-way street project.
May I have a motion, please?
Offered.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Number 216-14.
This is a resolution authorizing the payment of bills. The current fund is $1,103,615.58. Grants were $138,240.77. Payroll is $1,520,878.67. Total expenditures are $4,778,583.74. And inter-funds and transfers was $349,822.12.
May I have a motion to accept the bill or pay the bills, please?
Offered.
Second.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. That is it.
No, we have.
No, the two-
Oh, I'm sorry, we have two,
extras.
we have two additions. If anybody needs, didn't see the additions, there's copies over there, if you need them. I just gotta find out where I put it. Kathy, let me have yours. Let me have- Resolution 217-14.
It's a resolution authorizing city attorney to execute resolution documents in Nunemaker versus City of Hackensack.
Motion, please.
Offered.
Second.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Resolution 218-14.
It is a resolution authorizing the retention of Alexander H. Carver III, Esquire.
Motion, please.
Offered.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Very good, thank you. All right. Okay, I'm going to start by taking a motion to open to the public, please.
Offer.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Before I open the meeting for public comment, I want to go over some ground rules. This is the time for you to, the public, to address the council with issues for which you wish to be heard. I ask that you refrain from personal attacks, dialogue which could be considered defamatory or libel, and the council will not tolerate any derogatory or foul language. If you have an issue with any member of the administration, please address the chair. If that person then wishes to respond to your comments, they will then do so. Everyone will have their 5 minutes at the podium, and at the end of 5 minutes, you will be asked to please stop. We ask that you act civil and respectful, and we will do the same as the council. When you come to the podium to speak, please address the clerk and give her your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Victor Sasson, 261 Euclid Avenue. Mr. Mangan, can you explain briefly what the pilot agreement is, what a pilot agreement is, and also, can you address whether the city would be able to execute such an agreement with the three large tax-exempt entities, Hackensack University Medical Center, Bergen County, and Fairleigh Dickinson University?
On the second question, no, I can't answer that. That's not my area. On the first question, the pilot agreement with the Hackensack Housing Authority, believe it or not, we can't locate a copy of the agreement. We can't locate a copy, and the Hackensack Housing Authority can't locate a copy. But the fact is that we have taken in money, at least for the last 3 years. I had to prove this to the state, that it is a real revenue. The only documentation I have is a calculation that's done by the Hackensack Housing Authority as to how much they owe us. But we're still looking for a copy of the actual agreement.
A pilot agreement is a payment in lieu of taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So how would the city go about executing such an agreement with?
You're right. Excellent question, because it's called a pilot agreement, but it's not really a payment in lieu of taxes. It's actually, it has something to do with HUD, the Housing and Urban Development, because there are no taxes that are not being paid. I said that it's not a pilot. It's joking around, I said, I called it a pilot, pilot in lieu of something, I don't know what. But again, it's been called a pilot. I call it a pilot because that's what it's been called in the past, but it's not a true pilot because, like I said, I can't find anything having to do with taxes that are not being paid.
The Port Authority has pilot agreements with some municipalities, I believe, because their property is tax exempt. So, I mean, who in the city of Hackensack would approach the hospital in Bergen County and see if they could?
If I may,
Yeah,
there is discussion right now between Hackensack Medical Center and the city on some of their buildings at this moment.
What about the county and Fairleigh Dickinson?
Nothing with Fairleigh Dickinson. Oh, wait, there was something with this.
I mean, Fairleigh Dickinson has a Hackensack campus.
Yes, we know that. I'm not aware of any discussion with them at this moment, but there has been discussion with some county properties which are no longer being used, which we feel should be taxable.
Thank you.
With the hospitals.
And same with the hospital.
Same with the hospital.
On the paving comments that were made, they repaved every block of Euclid Avenue, but the one between Prospect and Summit. I don't know why that happened, but is there any,
I can check and find out for next meeting, unless that's under the CBDG grant. That could be about.
It was under the CBG
And that-
grant. It's based on income in the area.
Yeah.
oh, okay. And then there's one of my pet peeves is this traffic bottleneck at Passaic and Summit. There are no turn lanes on Passaic at Summit, and I'm wondering why the city can't, are those county roads?
That is a county road. We brought it up to them. There is on Summit, there's left-hand lanes.
Right.
There's none on Passaic. I agree. It bottlenecks down Passaic Street down all the way down to
Forever.
by Prospect.
Okay.
We have spoken to them
Thank
about
you
that.
very much.
Thank you.
Richard Salkin, Hackensack, New Jersey. Excuse me? This? Okay.
I think you know what it is.
1,000 pardons. That better not come off my time, John. Don't even try it.
I'll start. All right, take it over.
All right, start now. As a follow-up, I never thought I'd say, as a follow-up to Ms. Greenman, I can't believe those words came out of my mouth, but, John, you were on the council from 2009, 2011. I've looked into this, and this situation with the tax appeals is disturbing. I'm not going to defend anybody on this. You were there, John. I mean, when the tax attorney or McNerney, is that the appraiser you used back then? Or Art Carlson, Melfi didn't throw you out of the room, did he?
No.
So you're there. I mean, something was going on, or something was not going on. It was on your watch too, John. You got to take a little bit of ownership. That's all I'm saying to you. With respect to the situation, by the way, if you have questions about my bills or my salary when I was a prosecutor, please ask me. I made $76,000. I didn't get benefits. I was occasionally appointed special counsel. If you don't understand my billing, feel free to call me, okay, Mr. CFO?
No, I understand. What I do is I check the records, and that's what the records indicate.
Indicate what? You were questioned, I understand, as to this number. Someone's trying to say that I'm
All right,
making as much as Catania.
Mr. Salkin, it's just back and forth. Let's get,
Well, no, but it's my time.
I understand
And I
that.
understand my name was, in my opinion, taken in vain during your work session, so I'm responding. I think I'm allowed to do that. With respect to Mr. Catania and the little double talk we got from Mr. Rattino when this was raised last time, Oprah, and it's not always politics, Kathy. It's good to get at the records. He applied December 19th. Liacono was gone. Rattino was here. Rattino did this. And you know what? If you want to get to the truth, if you're really interested in getting to the truth, you have the power to investigate. You have subpoena power. Why don't you subpoena the young lady on the second floor who administers it and find out who directed her to put Catania on? You'll have your answer. Because the guy who wants to be city manager, his first action as interim was to violate the local municipal ethics law. Think about that. Now, you were going to report back, John, regarding Marie Battaglia. Has the raise been rescinded? Has it been taken away from her?
not to my knowledge, Mr. Salkin, no.
Well, let me save you trouble. I hope it was not. When is it going to be? Do you have a plan?
I do not have a plan. That's something that the city manager has to.
You can direct. This council can direct it. Are you going to direct it?
There will be discussion with this council.
You've
based
known
on
about this for weeks. In fact, you've known about this since December. She's gotten $5,000 of taxpayer money she's not entitled to. Did you bring your checkbook, Leo? Because it's coming back. And I'm giving you this, and you can consider it an ultimatum, John. I'm going to file a lawsuit on behalf of the city. I'm going to get a judge to order you pay my legal fees to go against Maria Battaglia and recapture the money. I think that's a worthwhile endeavor. You call yourself the money girl. Can we get that money back, Kathy?
This is a decision that's made, in our form of government, the city manager makes those decisions.
You can direct it. You have the power of the purse. You can direct him to rescind it, and you can direct it to get that money back. And
I don't believe we can under our form of government, as long as there's money in the budget, can we?
Rick, are you talking about voting yea or nay on the budget because that's an appropriation?
No. Not
So he's
yea or
talking
nay on the
about
budget.
us being
Directing
able
the
to
city
direct-
manager, directing the city manager to recoup the money that was improperly paid to Maria Battaglia, the wife of a council member. That's fair game. If this council doesn't do it, frankly, you're moving into a bad area, because you've been aware of it since you abandoned that position back in December. You know she got a raise. You did nothing about it. You've got to do something about it.
I was under the impression that it was a city manager decision, and based on that, and we will look into seeing what you're talking about. If we can.
Will you have a plan by Tuesday's meeting? Will you have a direction, John? We're asking you, as a person, a man to man, will you do something about it because it's wrong?
I will speak with the attorney and see what avenue to take.
I'm telling you, I will file that, and you'll wind up paying my legal fees to get the money back for the city. I promise you that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But if she were a cop, they would have their contract settled.
A little change in tone. My name is Michael Shannon. I'm president of the Northern New Jersey Community Foundation, and I just want to make a brief statement in support of the plan to increase open space, the creative placemaking proposal that we submitted to the Main Street Alliance, and the mayor and deputy mayor are familiar with it. And I've submitted a letter from the foundation. Let me just say that our work basically is with municipalities in the northern New Jersey region, and we work in education, public health, civic engagement. And the arts has become a major interest of ours in terms of its power to increase value, the leverage. For instance, the city is making a huge investment, as you all know far better than I, and I just want to make the case that the Cultural Arts District, the Performing Arts Center, the park that's associated with it, and related.
Excuse me, guys, please let him have.
Excuse me?
No, I'm just trying to keep the audience down a little bit. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Mr. Shannon.
So briefly, that's you have my letter from the foundation, and just to assure everybody, the work we do is totally volunteer. We have no financial interest with anybody working in any of the towns that with which we're working. So this, to finish, is just to urge you to pass whatever measures are necessary to ensure that the creative placemaking proposal passes. We were in Newark today at a conference. Cities all over the state are doing it. Redevelopment is the only way you can generate revenue now. And the best way to make that redevelopment as good as it can be is with these kinds of measures. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Barretto, Poplar Avenue. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
I have a couple of things to bring up tonight. One is, first I want to start off with thanking Denise from the DPW for working diligently on getting the lights on 274 State Street and the parking lot fixed. She actually called back a few times, kept giving me updates, and they were fixed a couple of weeks ago. And I wanted to thank her publicly because she really went out of her way, because there was some discrepancy as to who was responsible, whether it was PSC&G, DPW, whatever, but they fixed it, and it looks literally night and day different from the way it looked when everything was out. So I wanted to thank her publicly for that. The other thing is that I'm here representing the residents of Poplar Avenue where I live, and Mr. Mayor, about a week or two ago, we met at the Top 20 function for the Hackensack schools, and we were discussing how there are homes now that are being bought out by the state and having, they're buying them to relocate residents from Bergen County, some of them which came from, I guess, Pascack Valley, where they needed to be placed into a least restricted environment. And the home was bought. No one ever knew how that happened, or we were not told until literally Ms. Hubbard is here, who notified me that the house was in foreclosure, bought out, and that things were being moved out. And now, last week, I think they were actually ripping up the sidewalk to try to increase the sewer and the drains there, because there are going to be a lot more people moving in. My understanding and the research I've done, and that what we discussed, we as a community and the city of Hackensack, we really have no say as to what the state does when it comes to this. They can purchase any home and have a number of residents, and they have to meet certain guidelines. The concern I have is that when one of the residents, Enid, had submitted a letter to our city manager, his response literally was a cut and paste letter where he mentioned the wrong address, which was really pathetic. He said Allen Street, which we're on Poplar. But there was nothing there that really clarified anything. And I think it needs to be said, whether or not we have any say, I think it's important. We have an elementary school that is literally one block down from that residency, which we don't even know who's going in there. And it's not a matter of we don't want them in our neighborhood. It's a matter of who's coming. If they're adults, and they have access to either a car or how to drive, or they're little children that walk, some of them by themselves, up the street to go home. And at that time of the day, if they're not with a parent, you know how it is. Well, if there's nobody there, so who's going to monitor that? Who's going to monitor any goings on that are there? And it's not just on our street; it's the neighbors behind on Ross and everywhere else. And what I'm hoping that we could find out is, it always seems that Hackensack gets dumped. We're the first on everybody's list to just, let me try this, let me stick this, And did any other town in Bergen, what are they getting? Is it equitable? And my other concern is that they're going to buy up, like that house is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, on Poplar. It was one of the newest as well. So if that's what they're going to look for, the newer houses where there's less stuff that they have to actually put money into, then what does that say? That we can't have anything really nice because they're just going to come, take it if we can't afford it now, and then stick us with something else. So I'm hoping if we can do some research into that to see if we are getting an equitable amount of people from whatever the state is setting aside, and what are the requirements. They have to let us know something. I know, according to them, we can't say anything, but that doesn't sound right either. I think we do have a say as a community as to who comes in, how they come in. Because if you look now, there's just a lot of in and out of stuff, and it's not looking good.
Right.
And the last thing, it's just a comment, and I mentioned the city manager earlier. A couple of months ago, Deputy Mayor, you said we needed to try to give Mr. Rotino a shot. I haven't seen him in months. We haven't seen a complete group of people that were elected or chosen in months. And last week to come, I wanted to speak last week, and then on the way here, I was called that there was no meeting. And how was that even done? It's it's not getting any better. And when he was here the last time and I spoke, I wasn't trying to be sarcastic. It's just abundantly clear when someone really cares about what they do and how they go about it, and this is just becoming more and more of, you know, it's the 15th or the 30th, I got paid, on to the next one, and it's pretty sad. And we're taking a hit, and we could save a hell of a lot of money to add to our budget if we just cut off his salary. Call it a day. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir.